Recording in progress.
Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to work on lesson 14, which covers the use of symbols in Illustrator. Symbols are unique in that they are basically clip art that you can retrieve from their libraries, or you can create your own custom clip art and save it to your library and use them again and again in a variety of different ways. The lesson that they prepared for us, and this is the final version that you see here, is a t-shirt where it's, they've got a few little fish and surfboards and flowers. And over to the right, you'll see that they have the flower and they have a surfboard. And you'll see that they don't need to be repeated, copied and pasted or anything. They can be turned into what is called a symbol. Symbols are found to the right in this little panel here with a little club symbol here. And these are symbols. I'm going to go ahead and tear it off so you can see. And there's some that are built in and come automatically with Illustrator when you open up a new file. And there are some that they've created. There are some that have been a part of the libraries that are down here. Remember from previous lessons, I said, anytime you see a little library symbol in a panel, be sure to check them out because there are some really nice items that they have for you in the libraries that can be useful to you at a future date. Maybe now, maybe never, maybe once, twice. You never know, but they can come in handy. They really, really can. So before we get working on the t-shirt, excuse me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with a brand new file that I created. Not that one. Not that one. Let me go ahead and just create a brand new file here. Like so. Okie doke, let's have the symbol library up here. And let's also find a couple of symbols that we can use that are going to be used in this lesson. So one of the first symbols that they want us to use that exists in the libraries is found under the Tiki Library. And if I pull this up, and let's see if we can't look at this a little bit large in a large list. Oh, I don't want the list. I just want thumbnail view, but they're awfully small. It's kind of hard for you guys to see. But there should be a symbol of a fish here, and it is. As soon as I click on it, like we did with graphic styles, notice that it's added to our symbol library that's specific to this particular file. So that's the only one that we need. I encourage you, as I said just 2 minutes ago, to look at some of the others. Some of my favorites are found under, for example, sushi. And there's some really, really nice little illustrations that you can use here. So I'm going to click on a couple of those, just add them to our library so we can see how they can be used. So the way you create your own symbols is very easy. It's similar to creating a pattern or a graphic style, but it involves or allows you to use much more than the others, and that you can create a symbol that has gradients, that has a variety of other features that you can't otherwise use in the, for example, in patterns. To use one of these, you just simply click and you can drag it onto the screen and you have a nice little illustration here. So for example, if you're creating a menu for a sushi restaurant, then there might be some here that are already exist that you could use and put to use. They're copyright free. Notice that they're quite intricate, and I think they're quite elegant. There's some that are really, really nice. Okay. So what I want to show you how to do, though, is this is not covered in the lesson this time, and I don't know why. But one of the things that they want us to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to select the fish, and I'm just going to create, click and drag it out here. If you want to make a copy of the fish, you can just hold down the Option key and drag and make a copy. And it's that simple. That's what we've done with other things. But there are some other tools that I think you'll find very useful if you do choose to use symbols. And they're found over here in our tool panel, and it's the one with the little aerosol can. So all of these tools are associated with the symbol tool. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete these. So if you want to use just one of the symbols, just click and drag it out. And that's the otherwise. So if you want to, though, if you want to spray some of the symbols, like let's say I want a whole school of fish, then I can select the little spray can. And you'll notice surrounding the little spray can is a circle. It's a fairly large circle that indicates the size of the brush. If you hit the left bracket key, which is to the right of your P key, or the right bracket key, which is a couple of keys over from your P key, you can change the size of the brush. So if you want just a small area to be sprayed, then you use that. If you want a large area, then just make it larger. And you can switch from one symbol to another. You're not stuck using just one. And so to use this, you just click, and notice that I clicked one, but if I click and I hold down the mouse, I have a whole school of fish now. Okay. Now they're bunched up really close to one another. But what these tools allow me to do now is to shift, which is the first one over. The next one is the scruncher, and then we have a sizer, and then we have a spinner, which allows you to rotate. And then we can come back here and we have the stainer tool. So that allows us to actually change colors. So if I were to click in here, come on, no, won't let me do that. Okay. So that, and then we have the screener, and the last one is if you want to add a style to it. So let's start with the shifter tool. So I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. And now notice that I can sort of move these around just a little bit. Okay, I can just shift them up and down, you know, if I want to place them. It's not very accurate, but it gives me a little bit of flexibility in here to make changes. So that's what that one does. The next one allows us to scrunch it. Actually, if I want to bring them closer together, then you click here and notice wherever I click, they're getting bunched up and closer together. However, if you hold down the Option or Alt key on the PC, notice now that they're getting farther apart. And again, it's not, you don't have absolute control using it this way. Now, I don't know why with my mouse I did that. So I'm going to go back under View, and I need to go back to Rotate View. I'm going to go back to 0. There we go. So let me move this over and zoom this back up a little bit. Okay, so that's what that one does. The scruncher also, you know, it by default brings them closer together, and when you hold down the Option or Alt key, pushes them farther apart. The next one allows us to size, and it's done in a very similar fashion. So let's say I want a couple of these fish to be much closer. And again, you can make them as big or as small as you want. Now, if I want these in the background to be smaller, I hold down the Option. So some of these can be just that, you know, much smaller. So they look like they're in perspective. And I can bring this one up and make it even larger. So that's what that one allows you to do. Again, just click on it, it makes individual ones larger, and hold down the Option or Alt key, and then it shrinks them down a little bit. The next one is the rotate tool. So let's say I want this one to be kind of rotated a little bit. In this particular instance, fish don't do that, but that's what that allows you to do, is to rotate. Come on. There we go. So that's what that one does. The next one is a stainer tool. And you can see that it sort of, let me undo that. So what it will do is that if I click on here, that if these are in perspective, it will kind of lighten up a little bit. So that's what that one does. The next one here is a screener. Actually, that one makes it a little bit more transparent. The other one actually adds color. And I don't think I had a color. So let me go back to the stainer again. And I'm going to select, let's select pink fill just so we can see it. And now let's apply a stain to this. Make sure that the stainer is selected and see how it's being stained with that red. So that's what these do. Okay, so the stainer, if you select a fill color, will tint it a particular color. And the longer you hold down, the more on your mouse, the more of the stain appears. So that's how you can, adjust them just a little bit. So that's what these do. So that's one way of working. And then when you select the move tool, notice that they are all kind of grouped together as a single unit. And with this selected, if I were to come back here and for whatever reason, if I wanted flowers in here, if I went back, or if I wanted a splotch or there we go, since we selected sushi, let's go ahead and with the, there we go, too, if I click in here, notice that that puts that piece inside here as well. So they're all kind of grouped together. I don't want to do that right now, but that's how that works. So that's these are all the tools that for whatever reason, they've eliminated that from this lesson. But just to give you an idea of what this little aerosol can does, it is linked to the symbol tool. And that's what it does. Now, what can or can't be advantageous, it depends, but how to use this, similar to using graphic styles and textures or patterns, things like that. This is what we're going to do. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to select the fish again. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger here. And I'm just going to click it a couple of times. Okay. And if I select the individual, notice that when you use the aerosol symbol sprayer, that it groups them together. So if I don't want them grouped together, then you need to click and drag and pull them out separately, like I'm doing now. And then if I want to increase them or decrease them in size individually, then that's how you do that. Okay, so that I have a little bit more control over it rather than using the sizer tool over here. Now, let's say I wanted to change a color of part of this. And this is similar to using some of the other tools that we've done before. What I can do is I can double click on the fish symbol and it puts us in isolation mode. And when I click on this, you can see that it is in fact a group. And if I double click again, now you can see that I have individual elements inside the group. So if I click again and again, you can see that I have these elements that I can isolate and select. So let me come back in here and let's select this bottom part, or let's select the face here. And you can see that the fill is this light green. Well, let's go ahead and make it a blue. And as soon as I change the color of that, and I go back out of isolation mode, Notice that all of the fish have been updated so that if you affect just the one, it will affect all of them. You can also should be able to isolate them or change them by double clicking on an individual. Notice that it says that if I select an individual symbol, it's going to edit the definition of the symbol itself. So either you double click it by clicking on the symbol inside or symbol menu, or you can click on an individual fish. But remember that when you do that, it's going to affect all of them. So now if I click OK again, it puts us in isolation mode in a similar fashion. So I'm going to go out of that. Now, what we can do with this is kind of nice. I can select one of them, and then down here I have, let's see, I want to symbol options. Let's go in here. And right now, the symbol option, if I click on the symbol option tool. So remember, this is the library. This is if you want to place a symbol instance, or you just click and drag. This is if you want to break the link of the symbol to the one in the library. The next one gives us symbol options, and that's what I'm doing right now. And so right now, that this is a static symbol. If I want it to become a dynamic symbol, I can do that. And by clicking on that, okay, and clicking OK. Now what I can do is I can take the direct selection tool and I can click in here. That's deselect and select. And notice that I've highlighted just the fish face again. Now let's go ahead and change the color of it. I give it a pink color, not the one that the book recommends. And notice that it's the only one that's changed and the rest remain intact. Now, if I wanted this to become a new symbol, all I have to do is to click and drag on here and add it. Okay, so I have a new symbol, and there's my new fish. If I wanted to change the original fish, it was similar to changing graphic styles. So let's get rid of this one. I'm going to go ahead, one that I just created, and delete. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete that. I didn't want to delete the instance of it. There we go. I want to select that particular symbol and delete the symbol itself. If I delete the instance, notice that it went away. But if I come back here, let's see, if I select this, and since this is a dynamic symbol, I'm going to change the color of it again, the face. So let's make it kind of a greener face here. Now, if I wanted, if I wanted this to become my new symbol and I wanted this to be changed, if I hold down the Option or Alt key and I drag it on top of the old symbol, no, it won't allow me to do it. Okay, so I can't do that, similar to the other. So my mistake. If I wanted a new one, I just click and drag in here. That's probably the easiest way to do that. And decide whether you want it to be dynamic or static, and you can always change it. Okay. So there we have another one. And then with that one selected, we can go back to our symbol sprayer and spray a whole bunch of them. Okay. So you can create as many symbols as you want. There's a whole bunch that are really pretty cool. You can create your own quite easily. So if you wanted to create confetti, for example, and there in the library, there is already one under celebration, I believe. So here's one. It's a good example of taking just basic shapes, and in this particular instance, if I want to use the sprayer to do that, and I can come back in here and I can click and drag you can see that I have these little confetti shapes. And again, the more you hold down the mouse, the more of these symbols it sprays. So you have to, if it might be easier to use a Wacom tablet. And if you just one quick click, you're just clicking one instance of it. But you can see that each of these, if I double click on the confetti symbol itself, I come back in here and I look at the individual instances of each of these, you can see that they're just comprised of rectangles and stars. And if I wanted, little ellipses in there or whatever, I can create whatever configuration I want. And if I want gradients inside that or whatever I can, because remember the sushi examples that I showed you are really quite elegant. They're fairly complex illustrations. So you're basically creating, as I said at the onset, your own illustrations, or you're using theirs, which are little clip art, but they can be very sophisticated clip art. Okay, so I'm going to come back here and I'm going to use, it's not limited to illustrations though, because if we look at, let's see, sample 2 here. In this particular instance, they're creating little buttons, or if you wanted to create logos or whatever, you can do that. And rather than, you can create multiple sizes and styles, but if we click on any one of these, you can see that they haven't been grouped yet. Let's move that one. And you can see that the little microphone inside that has not been grouped. But if I select them both and I group them together, which would be a wise idea, and I click and I drag and I bring it back in here, I'm going to go ahead and make it a dynamic symbol. There we go. Now I can deselect. And now if I go back to my untitled piece here, I don't have it. I got to go back to the first one because it's not in there. There we go. It's here. So I'm going to create another artboard. We'll just do that. Or copy paste or whatever. Let's go ahead and select one of these. Let's drag one out. I'm going to try this. I'm going to copy this. And then I'm going to go back to my untitled piece. And I'm going to go ahead and paste. And notice that it added that to my symbols in here. So now when I select this particular symbol and I drag it out, I can use that. And if I want to edit it, I can. If I want to create multiple versions of it, as I said, when you drag it out just once, I can hold down the Shift key or the Shift and Alt key, and I can make it as big or as small as I want. Not be concerned about scaling it the way I would in Photoshop, because this is vector. It's made by through mathematics. It's not bitmap. Apologize here. Okay, so for example, I think the one in here, the one that they wanted, I can double click here. I can select the outer, let's click in here. It is a group. We're going to click in there, and I'm going to select, using the direct selection tool, the outer ring. And that's a stroke. And let's change that to red. Or a nice bright, make it a bright red here. Orange. There we go. And then I can go back outside and notice that it has updated the symbol. So now all of them that have been done are there. Okay, so let me undo. Let's go back out. Okay. So the little t-shirt that they want us to do. So let's go back to the start file here. Actually, I'm just going to go to the sample because that's really kind of the easiest way for this to work. And I'm going to go ahead and because it is a separate file, I'm going to go back down to Tiki and I'm going to bring out the fish again. So as you can see, it's a quick way of building t-shirts here or whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a t-shirt, but in this instance, t-shirt. Click and drag, make a copy. Hold down the Alt key, make another copy. And again, if I hold down the Shift key, with this, I can go ahead and I can shrink it down a little bit. And I can make another one a little bit larger. Let's make this one a little bit smaller. Too. And similar with the other options that they provided for us, that if we look at the start for this is start 1. Okay. I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to put them in our sample file. I'll close this for the time being. And I'm going to copy both of these. And I'm going to paste them inside my sample here. So I'm going to paste them. There we go. I'm just going to move them over to the side here. Again, they're just little illustrations, but they're not symbols. And to turn them into symbols, again, we go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And I'm going to click and I'm going to drag each one in here to turn it into, I'll make each one a dynamic symbol. Why not? And I'll take the flower and do the same thing and drag it in there to make it a. And again, you can name it at that time. I'm not taking the time to do that. Okay, let me see how this thing is supposed to look. Very end. So we're going to go ahead and let's take our surfboard up here. Not from here, but from here. Okay, and I'm going to drag it over. And I'm going to make a copy of it, hold down the Option, Alt key. And again, if I want it a little bit larger, I can. If I want it a little bit smaller, I can do that too. So let's go ahead and make another copy of it. Let's take the center one and make it a little bit bigger. Now remember, if you're not careful, see how I can distort them? You want to make sure that you don't do that. So when you're resizing anything, remember to hold down the Shift key. So we're going to pull that up a little bit. Pull this down a little bit. Put it in place. Okay. Let's go ahead and overlap them a little bit, like so. Let's pull this down like so. Probably have to move the fish a little bit too. Not being very careful with my illustration here. So let's select each of these. Hold down the Shift key to select them all. Move them down a tad. Now I can take this shape, and if I want, I could use it as a clipping mask, or I could layer it on top. It's up to you, if you want it to be a clipping mask or not. And this is an instance where, I've lost sight of where that image is. So what I need to do is I need to turn off the preview. You can see that here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make it a white fill. Maybe not the way the book would do it, but that's okay. I'm going to make it a white fill. And it is, I want it a white fill and I don't want any stroke. So I'll go ahead and turn that off. But I needed to bring it to the front. So I can either do that from the layers panel, or I can go up to Object Arrange. And I can just say bring to front. Now, when I bring a preview back, Command Y, you can see how it's covering it up. So there. Okay. Now that's at the very front. So I probably need to take these guys and I need to bring them to the front as well, so that they are in effect. You know what? This needs to go behind. My mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up layers. Let's see where that is at the very top. And that path, and I'm going to drag it down a tad so that it covers up. There we go. It's here. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, I guess maybe this needs to be flipped. So I'll just take it and I will flip it. So I'm going to go ahead and either rotate it or flip. It's up to you. Click from the center. So maybe that's what I had to do all along. And just bring it to the top. So I'll put it back on top again. There we go. So that just covers that up. That's not exactly how they did it, but it's okay. You get the idea. Similarly with the fish, we're going to bring them to the front. Object arrange, bring the front. That brings them to the front. We can move them around wherever we like. And here. They've done it a bit differently than I have, but you get the idea. And then we can go ahead and we can bring out some of the flowers. Like so. Just click and drag, move them around. And if we want to resize them, we can. And before you know it, you have, quote, designed a t-shirt. Ready to go. So there you have it. Short lesson today. Not done with particularly, a lot of care, but I think you get the idea of how to use symbols now. I guess the last thing is I should have added the type over here. So this little guy probably belongs over here, and we add the type down here, but you get the idea. Okay. Then you have your t-shirt design used with symbols. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover today. I probably will do a little bit more with this tomorrow, my last day, your last day in the class. And remember that tomorrow or at the end of the week, all of your lessons are due, your final assignment is due, and at the end of the weekend, I'll probably get to grading them and giving you a final grade for the class. Okie doke. So that's all there is for today. Symbols, as I said, I think can be pretty neat. I really don't use them all that much, but they can be really, depending on how ambitious you want to be and how complex you want to make your symbols, they can be, very helpful, especially if you do illustrations or you work on designs that are repetitive, that have a lot of the same features used, every time that you create a design. And that's where the logos come in, things like that, that if you have one that is helpful to you, that you use frequently, then it might behoove you to turn it into a symbol so that you can use it on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, if you're, depending on how you're signed up to Adobe, remember, we have our own custom libraries here that we can create. So if I wanted to add one of these elements to a library here, I could do that. Okay, so that would be a way of doing that. So right now, I have not added anything to my library, but we can go in my library here. You can see that I have from previous lessons, I've created a cup. I could go ahead and I can create a, I should be able to just drag it in here and add it. So let me go ahead and see if I can't right click on here. Well, I'll do that for tomorrow. I'll go ahead and I'll add it. I don't like keeping my things on their library, so I generally don't do that. Okay. Anyway. So that's pretty much it for today. I will say goodbye. Short lesson, maybe half an hour. That's about it. And then that's all we have. Okay. If you have any questions, please email me or attend tomorrow's webinar and I will do my best to help you out. Okay. That's it. I'm going to stop recording in a second here and I'll say goodbye.